Mr. President, Excellencies and representatives from member states and observers, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. President for his kind words towards me and his message of condolences to the victim of the bus accident that we had yesterday in Nepal. Mr. President, I would like to begin by extending the warm greetings from the people and the government of Nepal. I feel proud to share with you about the recent promulgation of our new constitution. This marks the conclusion of the peace process initiated in 2006. A new journey towards peace, stability, and prosperity has now begun. It is a great honor and privilege for me to present Nepal's second UPR report to this August session. My delegation is pleased to have this opportunity to present this report on Nepal's efforts towards fulfilling its international obligations and commitments on the issues of human rights, update the status of implementation of the recommendations that we accepted under the first UPR cycle, highlight our achievements, and share what remains to be done, as well as the challenges and constraints we confront with. We look forward to having a productive, interactive dialogue with the member states on these issues. My delegation includes the ambassador and permanent representative of the Permanent Mission of Nepal to the UN in Geneva, secretaries of relevant ministries, and other senior officials from different agencies responsible for the formulation of human rights policies and implementation of human rights obligations. Mr. President, the new democratic and inclusive constitution was promulgated in Nepal on 20th September 2015 through the Constituent Assembly elected by the people in November 2013. With it, the long-cherished aspiration of the people to have a constitution written by their own representatives has been fulfilled. It has been made possible by the rigorous democratic exercises spanning over 8 years, conducted in an inclusive, transparent, and participatory manner, giving due consideration to Nepal's vast diversity. The promulgation of the new constitution marks the conclusion of the peace process, as well as the historic political transition in Nepal. It has also institutionalized the federal democratic system of governance in the country, paving the way for political stability, sustainable peace, and economic prosperity. It has also significantly ensures inclusive democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, the democratic values of governance, representative and accountable government, social and economic justice, and universally accepted human rights. The new constitution guarantees substantive equality and promotes human dignity, identity, and opportunity for all by ending all forms of discrimination and inequalities. This fundamental law of the land safeguards every right of persons, groups, and communities, embracing multi-ethnic, multilingual, multicultural, and diverse geographical specificity. It further aims to create an egalitarian society on the basis of the principles of proportional inclusion and participation, to ensure equitable economic opportunities, shared prosperity, and social justice by ending discriminations related to class, ethnicity, region, language, religion, and gender. For this, the proportional electoral system, inclusive representation of marginalized and disadvantaged communities in all the state organs, positive discrimination, and special provisions with regard to rights of women, Dalits, Madhesis, indigenous people, Tharus, Muslims, persons with disabilities, and minorities have been guaranteed in the Constitution. The Constitution has ambitiously broadened the scope of fundamental rights by ensuring a wide range of economic, social and cultural rights, including right to employment, right to food, right to housing, right of social justice, right of consumers, and so on. Similarly, the directive principles of the Constitution provide a framework for progressive realization of socio-economic rights and guidance for the successive governments to shape relevant laws and policies in line with those principles. In a nutshell, the Constitution fully catches the spirit of universally accepted human rights and ensures their promotion and protection. The new Constitution has been significantly progressive in eliminating gender-based discrimination, as well as empowering women through enhanced representation. It has ensured at least 1/3 representation of women in the Federal Parliament as well as the State Assembly, and at least 40% representation of women at the lowest local level. It has provisions for either Speaker or Deputy Speaker of both houses to be women, and also ensures right to lineage, right against all forms of exploitation, equal rights in the family matters and property, among others. The Constitution has similar provisions for President and Vice President, ensuring that the two positions are held by persons of different sex or community. I wish to share with this august gathering that both the newly elected Speaker of the Parliament and President of the country are women. The historic elections have well reflected the spirit of the new inclusive Constitution. Similarly, with a view to ensuring further inclusivity and empowerment of every community in society, the Constitution has established and further strengthened various commissions as independent constitutional bodies, such as the National Women Commission, National Dalit Commission, National Inclusion Commission, Indigenous People and Nationalities Commission, Madhesi Commission, Tharu Commission, and Muslim Commission. The government is committed to building on the solid foundation laid by the new Constitution for the continued promotion and protection of human rights with necessary legal, institutional, and administrative mechanisms. The formation and operationalization of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as well as Commission on Enforced Disappearances, also reflects the government's commitment to addressing the serious violation of human rights committed during the period of conflict, ending impunity, and providing justice to victims, as well as promoting sustainable peace, harmony, and reconciliation in society based on ground reality. The independent and competent judiciary constantly defends and advances human rights agenda in the country, including through judicial pronouncements and verdicts. The vibrant and free media, active civil society, as well as the ever-growing awareness and consciousness of the general people about their rights continue to strengthen the human rights environment in the country. Moreover, the National Human Rights Commission assumes central role in the protection and promotion of human rights with responsibility for independent investigation to all human rights violations as well as for overall monitoring of human rights situation. Mr. President, in the last 4 years, after the first UPR, the country has been able to accomplish many significant progresses in the overall human rights situation in the country. The basic elements of the rule of law and human rights are being incorporated in the periodic development plans. The rights-based approach has become an important consideration in every aspect of national life. By formulating an action plan on implementation of UPR recommendations received in 2011, we have set a stage for more effective outcomes of important human rights issues with significant monitorable progress. The major accomplishments, the conclusion of the peace process, and historic political transition in particular, have been nationally driven. The country's experience in democratic exercise and collaboration on the overall interest of the country during the peace process and political transition has been quite important and unique. While the prolonged political transition posed, at times, serious threats to the democratic norms and values, rule of law, and enhanced the possibility of impunity, particularly with the broad distinction between criminal acts and political activities. It has also been an enlightening experience to guide further course of action. It is during this process that we realized the importance of compromise and flexibility to move forward from a context like ours, characterized by diversity and divergent views. The endogenous homegrown process that we pursued has proved to be an effective vehicle to arrive at a broader consensus on all critical issues, including the political system and governance. We are confident of our ability to resolve any conflicting issue with our own efforts and through peaceful means. Any disruption of this process, as well as internal dynamics, through any exogenous interest, will only complicate matters. It is with this conviction that the new government is engaged in dialogue with the Madhya-based political parties to win their confidence and resolve the differences within the constitutional framework. While the government is quite serious and sensitive to their concerns, the nature and effects of the continued agitation have been detrimental to our national interest and the overall well-being of the people. In fact, we are currently at a very delicate situation resulting from the obstruction of essential supplies at the border points. Lives and livelihood of the entire population have been adversely affected. Schools and hospitals also bear the brunt of current circumstances, exposing millions of children, elderly and sick persons to greater risk and vulnerabilities. The future of our children is at stake. Our regional and international trade have been constrained. Our industries are on the verge of collapse. The tourism sector has been hit hard. Our economy has suffered a huge setback. If the current trend is not checked, the country is likely to experience an unjust and severe humanitarian crisis. This needs to be avoided. While we seek to address political problems through dialogue, the continuous obstruction at border points, under any pretext, has severely impeded the exercise of rights and freedom that Nepal is entitled under the international law as a landlocked country. As a least developed country that has emerged from a decade-long armed conflict, followed by a protracted political transition, and is just taking steps forward on a path of recovery and reconstruction with the support of the international community in the aftermath of the devastating earthquakes. The challenges and pressures besetting the nation and the people at present are immensely painful. Nevertheless, we are quite optimistic in view of our ability and competence to resolve our differences on our own for the national interest of the country. The present government has already begun the process of dialogue and is confident of arriving at a mutually acceptable solution soon. Like many other democratic constitutions, the Constitution of Nepal is also a living and dynamic document that can be amended in accordance with the needs and aspirations of the people. It is flexible enough to adequately address the new context the nation faces through timely amendment. We, the people of Nepal, are increasingly getting used to the significance and necessity of the democratic norms, rules, and processes to resolve differences without undermining social harmony, cohesion that have been the defining features of our diverse society. Mr. President, the fundamental goal of the new government, elected a few weeks back, is to effectively implement the new constitution by removing the structural and functional obstacles, challenges in the way of socio-economic transformation of the country. The government has started to take necessary measures to formulate necessary legislative and policy tools needed for the smooth operationalization of the Constitution. As the country ushers in a new era, we are also keen to give further momentum to our economic development agenda. Despite the huge devastation and setback caused by the recent earthquakes, Nepal will continue to pursue the goal of graduation from the LDC status by 2022 and becoming a middle-income country by 2030. I would like to express the government's commitment to keep up the spirit generated by the new constitution in advancing the cause of human rights. Mr. President, despite the consistent efforts in the promotion and protection of human rights, Nepal continues to confront challenges in meeting some of the desired targets and fulfilling obligations. Paucity of resources, landlocked situation, low level of economic development, rampant poverty, deprivation of basic needs and amenities, low level of education, among others, have adversely affected the implementation of action plans on human rights. Moreover, the prolonged political transition had also left negative impacts on creating conducive environment required for the promotion of human rights in the country. As the political transition has come to an end with the promulgation of the new constitution, the country is in a position to undertake further steps forward for the effective realization of all human rights by all with adequate support from the international community. We stress the importance of strict adherence to the principles of universality, objectivity, and non-selectivity by all human rights mechanisms. Under the United Nations, as democracy, development, peace, security, and human rights are interdependent, they call for a holistic approach to address the human rights issues. The efforts of the international community must therefore be geared towards creating an environment for the enjoyment of all human rights, including civil and political rights, social, cultural and economic rights, and the right to development. For a country like Nepal, the enjoyment of the right to development will have significant impact on the promotion of other rights. It is in this context that we attach huge importance to the effective and balanced implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development adopted by the world leaders in September this year. The transformative ambition of the 2030 Agenda, along with its focus, among others, on peace, equality and freedom, offers a new hope and opportunity for the enjoyment of human rights by all. Mr. President, to conclude, I would like to reiterate our total and unflinching commitment to the promotion and protection of human rights. There is a greater awareness and positive outlook in the country among both the state and non-state actors about the value of human rights. As I also consider the UPR as an opportunity to learn from others, I look forward to receiving your valuable inputs during your constructive engagement in the interactive dialogue. I am confident that with the greater understanding and support of the international community, Nepal will continue to make significant progress in the days ahead. I thank you for your kind attention. For giving me the floor again. I also would like to thank all the member states who have spoken so far. This interactive dialogue is becoming lively and obviously encouraging to me and also to my delegation. I also would like to thank the member states for their kind votes of sympathy and condolences on the loss of life and property after the massive earthquake that Nepal experienced on 25th April this year. The devastating earthquake caused a serious damage to the life and property. Almost 9,000 people are killed, and almost 7 billion loss on economic terms has been estimated. This devastation has also caused an enormity of challenges to the overall transformation of our society. It has considerably constrained our ability to protect the rights of those affected by the devastation. However, the government is fully committed to addressing the challenges through timely recovery and reconstruction works. The assurances of support expressed by our neighbors and other friendly countries, as well as the international organizations, has been quite encouraging. I would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks and appreciation to the international community for their generous support. Mr. President, I also would like to thank the member states who have expressed their support and encouragement on the promulgation of the new Constitution. Drafting of the new Constitution through Constituent Assembly in itself was a very difficult task, especially in a country like Nepal, having a diverse socio-cultural complexity. But despite that, we have been able to draft and promulgate the new Constitution, which is truly a democratic and inclusive Constitution. It has incorporated all the democratic values and norms of human rights. Now the challenges before us is the implementation of the Constitution. Let me be honest with you that some of the measures, some of the provisions that we have incorporated in the Constitutions are at a level, at a quite an ambitious level. Implementation of those provisions are definitely a big challenge, but the commitment of the government and the commitment of the political parties, commitment of the civil society, and the overwhelming support of the Nepalese population is there. So, with that in background, I would like to assure this August gathering that we will be able to effectively implement the provisions of the Constitution. Article 47 of the Constitution has categorically mentioned that the government should formulate legislation within 3 years to effectively implement some of the right issues provided in the Constitution. We have already begun that process, and within the time stipulated in the Constitution, I am sure that we will be able to fulfill that mandatory provision. Mr. President, With this remark, I would like to request some of my colleagues to express their views on some of the issues that has been raised in this August session. Thank you very much, Mr. President. The interactive session has come to an end. In my opinion, it has been a very productive and useful session. I would like to thank all the distinguished delegates who participated in this deliberation. Your remarks has been very useful to us, and it will remain as the basis for the formulation of human rights policy and also its implementation. However, some of the recommendations, which definitely we have taken note of it, we have reservations also. Because of the complexity of the recommendations, because of our unique and difficult socio-cultural background, it seems some of the recommendations needs to wait, but we will definitely respect the concern expressed by the distinguished delegates. We are in total agreement with most of the delegates who expressed their concern and views regarding the strengthening of national human rights institutions. Nepal has a constitutional body with A status, a National Human Rights Commission. The government is totally committed to further strengthen its capacity in fulfilling its role as a watchdog in the implementation of human rights in Nepal. We appreciate the delegates' concern about educational reforms, poverty reduction measures. We also agree on the recommendation about developing a mechanism to collaborate with civil society, regional and global organizations to protect the rights of the migrant workers. We appreciate your concern about child labor, early marriages, and caste-based discrimination. As a matter of fact, we have a strong legislation, institutional framework to deal with such issues. Legally speaking, all kinds of discriminations based on caste, religion, gender are punishable we have a strong enforcement authority now in place. Despite that, there is no denying a fact that these social aberrations still continue at some places. But with the strong measures, the legislations, the infrastructure, I believe that in coming days, this social evil will come to an end. Mr. President, regarding the religious freedom, I would like to assure you, Nepal is a country which has guaranteed a religious freedom. This has been specifically mentioned in the new constitution. A total religious freedom is guaranteed by law. Having said this, I also would like to bring to the notice of this august session that in Nepal we are facing some challenges to our traditional values, cultural heritage, and national identity. In last 1 decade, there has been an organized and planned attempt of proselytization, and as a result of that, it is being estimated that almost 1 million conversion has taken place in Nepal. It is because of this region having a total religious freedom in the constitution. We have also made provision that organized and planned conversion would be punishable. Mr. President, hardship that the Nepalese people are facing at the present moment has also been expressed by some of the delegates. I would like to thank all of them. 10 years of insurgency, which cost a heavy price in Nepalese society, causing death of almost 16,000 people and a huge loss of property, and followed by 9 years of transition marked by instability and at times violence also. Now we have come to an end. The peace process that started in 2006 has logically come to an end. The Constituent Assembly has drafted the Constitution, and as provided by the interim Constitution, the President of the country promulgated it on 20th September. If I am not mistaken, nowhere in the world we can claim to have a constitution with 100% perfection. Constitution in itself is a living document which provides room for improvement, amendments. Despite the socio-cultural, ethnic diversity, we have been able to come out with a constitution which we can claim that is democratic and inclusive. I've already mentioned some of the silent features of the Constitution. It is not only broad-based, it is owned by almost all sections of the Nepalese society. Please not be mistaken that Constitution is owned by the Nepalese population. Yes, there are some grievances. Yes, there are some disappointments. It's being mentioned here also that after the promulgation of the Constitution, 45 people have died. That is not true. Those unfortunate incidents had taken place before the promulgation of the Constitution. Yes, in the Madhes, the southern plain, in around 8 districts out of 75 districts, some Madhes-based political parties have started agitation demanding some changes in the Constitution. This is Nepal's internal problem, and we are competent enough to address those issues on our own. The present government has urged all the agitating political parties to come for dialogue. Mr. President, it's my pleasure that the government has entrusted me as head of the dialogue team. And we have already completed 4 rounds of dialogue with the agitating political parties. I believe that we will be able to resolve this crisis through consensus and within the framework of the Constitution. But under any pretext, disruption of supply lines, disruption of transit is not acceptable. For a landlocked country, Nepal, this has become a very serious issue because of the disruption of supply lines, especially fuels and essential commodities. Almost all educational institutions are forced to be closed. Mr. President, more than 2,000 industries are closed. Tourism has badly affected. In the overall economy, it's very unfortunate, Mr. President, that the massive earthquake in which we estimated around 7 billion of loss in economic terms. This crisis, in last 2.5 months alone, it's estimated that more than $5 billion loss has been estimated. For a country like Nepal, you can imagine, Mr. President, how much suffering we are passing through. At times when we were celebrating the festivals, people had no cooking gas. The vehicular movement all over the country is less than 10%. Is that justifiable? Can't Nepal have its own authority to promulgate constitution? Mr. President, I'm sorry if I become a bit emotional, but that is, I think, what we are suffering today. The government is totally committed to resolve the political crisis through negotiation, through consensus, and within the framework of the Constitution. Mr. President, due to the time constraint, I would not like to go into the details of each and every comments that the distinguished delegates have made this afternoon. As a concluding remark, Mr. President, on behalf of the government of Nepal, I would like to thank you all for your constructive participation in the interactive dialogue and for sharing your invaluable comments, observations, and recommendations. We would like to assure you all that Nepal would categorize all the recommendations received today and share our position during the adoption of report and thereafter in due course of time. With the promulgation of the new constitution, the country has entered into a new era of political and socio-economic transformation. Accordingly, the government is committed to reviewing and revising the existing laws as well as developing new legislative frameworks for the effective implementation of all the provisions of this new democratic and inclusive constitution. In this context, we believe that this interactive dialogue also provides us important inputs for further development of legislations, policies, strategies, and programs in pursuance of human rights along the internationally accepted norms and standards. I am confident that in the changed context of inclusive and participatory democracy, human rights will get greater importance in every walk of life. We have already made good policies and infrastructure for the effective realization of all human rights. What needs to be focused now is the maximum utilization of available means and resources while enhancing our capacity for their progressive advancement with the support of international community. Mr. President, I would have loved to participate throughout the whole session. However, due to pressing domestic commitment, I am leaving tomorrow. My delegation will continue to be with you until the adoption of the report. On behalf of my delegation and on my own, I express my sincere thanks to the President and all the distinguished delegates as well as the Secretariat staff for their valuable support. Thank you, Mr. President.